It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague, my fantasy rival this week, Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
I'm fine. I say exciting times. I've moved my recording location 10 feet further down the kitchen.
If you know Neil, as I do for the past 15 odd years, that is what's known in the trade. There's a massive change and could totally screw up Neil's whole life. So congratulations to Neil. Clap from this end of the phone line.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about clapping, as I am that little bit further away from my internet router.
Oh, fantastic! Well, we can only keep our fingers crossed then. Are you ready for the waxing bowl this week, Dutton? In fantasy and in real life. We'll get to the real life one later. Well, as both games have a 5-1 team going against a close to 500 team, we know who's going to be in charge in both events, and that's Neil's side. But we'll get on to that later. Standard affair this week. Hot takes from yours truly. Got 3 games of the week, including our contractually obligated, although I think I actually would have chosen it anyway, game in Twickers, as I like to call it, and I think everybody who likes rugby likes to call it.
Oh yeah.
We got Fancy Darling and Fancy Loser, courtesy of Fantasy Guru Neil Dutton, and then we're going to go through our fantasy teams of the week. Disappointing loss in DraftKings last week by a massive 0.3 points. When you look why you got beat, is because Delaney Walker ran for -3 yards. No Delaney, stick to catching. Let's get this started, Dutton, with some hot takes from yours truly. Still no.
Before we do that,
go on, then.
we would be remiss if we didn't pay some small tribute to the great Kevin Cadle.
Yeah, who you've spoken to on this show, Dutton, and was a wonderful guy, warm, generous, and did a lot to bring the NFL and American sports to the UK. Obviously, for those who aren't aware, was a tremendously successful basketball coach before he joined Sky Sports to do the NFL coverage.
Indeed. As I say, I spoke to him once. It was only for about 20 minutes, but it was just... He gave us this impression just by talking to him, and say it wasn't by Skype, so I couldn't see him, just listen to him, that even though I'd got him on to talk about him, he was almost as interested to talk about me. And, it's just incredible generosity of spirit. He's a huge loss to everyone, as I say, associated with the game in this country. And as I say, we've got four games in London this year, 2 at Wembley, 2 at Twickenham. They've sold out. We have wall-to-wall draft coverage. We have, the Super Bowl the week leading up to it. A lot of that is because of how many people gravitated towards Sky while Kevin Cadle was the host. In the early days with Nick Horling and Mike Carlson, then with Neil Reynolds and Cecil Martin, Jeff Reinbold, and he's not been on telly of the last few years, but he has been missed, and he will always be missed.
Absolutely, Dutton. Here. To lighten the mood, Dutton, we'll go on to the hot takes now, and as we say a lot, and in our previous guys when we talked a lot more about gambling, in theory, gambling's for Las Vegas, and that's why they got big hotels. This year in the NFL, gambling is absolutely for losers. Like week 6, underdogs were a massive 10-3, including 2 teams who were double-digit underdogs actually winning their games, that being Miami and the Giants. 49ers also covered, being 10-plus underdogs, as I may have mentioned last week when we talked about it. Against the spread, underdogs are 18 over 500 overall this year, Dutton. If you're going to bet, be lucky rather than good, because good luck trying to guess any of these games.
One of the interesting facts is that when the Tennessee Titans scored their last touchdown against the Colts on Monday night, therefore beating the spread, that last touchdown was not reviewed. All scoring plays are reviewed. This one was not, because it wasn't deemed necessary. If you look at it closely, I think Derrick Henry might just step out of bounds.
Ooh, naughty. I didn't know that. I didn't watch the Monday Night Football game.
It was a good game.
I missed that one.
Yeah, but it has emerged after another particularly controversial call regarding replay, which we won't go into. They didn't deem it necessary to review the play, even though they review brackets every touchdown. They didn't deem it necessary to review it. I imagine some gamblers are probably furious.
I would assume so, don't I? I would assume so. So please bet responsibly, and by responsibly I would suggest maybe not at all, or on things like the over.
Yeah, don't bet on anything that can talk.
Yeah. Second one, Dutton. After the news this week, I think it's not maybe a hot take. It's an intervention, and it's to Andrew Luck, and it's to Andrew Luck that he needs to look after himself and his career, not the 2017 Indianapolis Colts season. Get fit, get healthy, don't rush back. A hot take coming later on. We need people like Andrew Luck in the league, especially going forward. So I know it will be easy to try and rush back to try and get that team to the playoffs. But even if they get to the playoffs, they're going nowhere. So I don't think it's worth the bodily risk it could entail.
But do you not think the Colts would rather have Jacoby Brissett, 2 first-round picks in the future, and a rookie?
I did. What I actually said was, and Neil sent a text, and I at 10:30 last night thought that it would be worth a discussion. That's all I said, given the injury record of Andrew Luck. Dutton suggesting, and rightfully so, that he broke his spleen and his shoulder at the same time, which shows you how bad that team can be and why they probably need more picks. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, Dutton. But I think I'll come on to a riposte on that with my fourth and final hot take. Third one, it's Thursday night, Dutton, and there's a massive Thursday night game in AFC West, Raiders against the Chiefs. And I think there's a hot take that if the Raiders lose this game, Jack Del Rio could be in serious harm of losing his job pretty quickly.
I think Matthew Sherry, the editor of Gridiron, would be happy to see that, as he's not his biggest fan. I don't think they'll fire Jack Del Rio. I think there's too much tumult about the Raiders. We've seen that they've been patient with Reggie McKenzie. I expect them to be similarly patient with Del Rio. Could he go at the end of the season if they continue if they go 2-14, for example? It's possible. It's still the Raiders, but I don't think. What do you sell a head coach coming in? We're here for 2 years.
Yeah, I think given all the positive spin and influence that was on the Raiders this year, for them to go to, what would they be, 2-4 if they lose this game?
2-5.
2-5, actually. Sorry, yeah, you're right. They haven't had a bye yet. That is a big step down, and not really what Mark Davis and the spectacular haircut were looking for.
Seriously, what is with that haircut? Come on, Mark.
I don't know.
You've had long enough. You've had, you're in your 60s.
Yeah, you're better than that, yeah. Final hot take, Dutton. And it's something I'm kind of stealing from Kevin Clark of the Ringer NFL show. And we are very close to the quarterback landscape becoming an absolute disaster. Like, we have been in a, I don't like using this, like, quote unquote golden age of quarterbacks. We talk, Manning obviously now no longer playing, but Brady, Breeze, Big Ben, Rivers, Eli to some extent, and obviously Aaron Rodgers, all mid-30s and later now. If they all go, I mean, like, they ain't getting replaced with those type of players again. And we can like Deshaun Watson's been absolutely magnificent. Carson Wentz played really well so far, but I don't think, I hope I'm wrong, that they are these type of quarterbacks. They may be in the future, but there's a lot more Brian Hoyers, a lot more Ryan Fitzpatricks. Jameis Winston and Marcus. Jameis Winston gone backwards this year can be argued. Marcus Mariota, can't stay fit. Andrew Luck, checkered history over the past couple of years with injuries. There's a reason that quarterback of my favourite team is about to make himself an awful lot of money, because he's quite quickly, if all of these players disappear in the next couple of years, becomes like quote unquote elite by not being elite but just being better than everybody else.
I'm not going to do it now because obviously we haven't got the time, but I think if we were to look at all 32 NFL teams and project what their quarterback picture will look like in 3 years, as it stands now, there's an awful lot of teams who are going to be, who it appears they could be found literally looking around with pockets turned out, saying we've got nothing.
Well, let's look at it really simply, Dutton. I'm saying, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, LA Chargers, Green Bay Packers, Washington Redskins, New York Giants, possibly Atlanta Cardinals. What are Tampa doing in 3 years if Jameis Winston doesn't work out? Still nobody in Jacksonville. Would ravaging, Kansas City, we need to know what Patrick Mahomes is going to be like. Denver
Cleveland
still haven't got an answer. Well, Cleveland never will have an answer. Baltimore, Cincinnati. I think we just named 20 teams. What are you doing in 3 years in your quarterback? And you watch college, and that's not where college is strong. Quarterback. There's many positions where you've got fantastic players, and quarterback isn't one of them, especially NFL style quarterbacks.
Yeah, unless everyone wants to start playing the air raid in the NFL, which I highly doubt.
I highly doubt that too, Neil. Highly doubt that too. They're the hot takes this week, but let's get on with a funny slate of games this week. But we found 3 that we like as our games of the week.
The games of the week. The games of the week.
Touchdown, 85 yards. He's going to score. He's going to score. He's going to score. Touchdown.
First game's up on Cardinals at Rams. Just so we know, Rams are favoured by 3.5 at home, quote unquote. It's at Twickers, Dutton, the home of rugby, HQ, whatever toffs call it. I don't really know. I'm not really that interested in peanut hugging personally.
Pip
and all that. Have yourself a nice bombardier and off you go with your Pims and your strawberries and cream and other such fancy foods you get from Waitrose. Do we think it being at Twickers rather than Wembley changes in the international series game at all, Neil, or do you just think it's in the UK and it'll have a similar feel?
Sorry, I didn't get any of that.
Just saying, do you think that it being Twickers instead of Wembley changes the international series at all?
I don't know. I don't think so. One could argue that in terms of atmosphere, Twickenham might be better suited to the NFL, as it's a slightly more intimate atmosphere. Because you have to remember that Wembley is bigger than most NFL stadiums, if not all. So I don't think so. I mean, it's not the first time they've been at Twickenham, and aside from getting out of the place, generally I think it got a pretty positive review last time. Yeah,
I look and think it is different, as you said. It is, although it's 70,000 people, it is much more enclosed than Wembley. Wembley's quite more a bowl, spacious bowl. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. As you said, people liked it last year, apart from the traffic. But if anyone's tried to go from Richmond to Staines, like I have on a regular basis, then good luck in any form of travel around there. It's not happening in this lifetime or the next. I think we have a first this year, Dutton, and that's a player who's been to Wembley, been to the international series game twice, and that's Mr. Adrian Peterson, who turned back the clock last week with a fantastic display for the Arizona Cardinals. And I guess my question is, do you see that as a one-off, or do you think it's possible that it could continue going forward?
Well, he's in a good spot this week because the Rams defense, coached and helmed by our friend Coach Phillips, they're bleeding fantasy points to running backs of late. Obviously, the thing in the Rams' favour is if this game stays, in their favour, if this game stays close, Peterson stays in. If it becomes a blowout, Adrian Peterson does not take the field. It'll be Andre Ellington's job. Andre Ellington, who, what was the stat I saw? He has been targeted twice out of 41 of his. He's had 41 targets this season. 2 of them have been when Arizona have had the lead. So when Arizona are leading, they're going to lean on Adrian Peterson. Going forward, I don't know. I mean, he was better last week than all their running game has been all season. But bloody hell, that's a very low bar. But I think he could have a decent game, decent return, especially if you plug him into your fantasy lineup this week.
I hope it does, Dutton. I like a good renaissance. I don't think it'll last for long because I don't think the Arizona Cardinals are very good.
No, they're really not.
They would have been, as I think you quite rightly pointed out, in 2008. Unfortunately, it's not 2008. It's 2017. I'd like it to be good. And I always want a good London game because, let's be honest, in percentage terms, we haven't had many of them.
No.
So any good ones we could get would be very nice.
Adrian Peterson did, of course, not this season, does have a good Wembley game on his resume. Vikings v the Steelers.
He does. Neil, and we were there.
Mm-hmm.
On the Rams side, I'm starting to think that Todd Gurley is a must-start in all forms. And I'm even liking a sneaky 4 catches per game and 11 yards a catch as well, which is starting to creep into his game.
Yeah, he's becoming, an all-purpose back, which is what most people thought he would be when he came in. It just shows you, Sean McVay, is obviously a wonderful coach, but it just shows you how bad and ordinary the offensive coaching staff was last year. Gurley is averaging 127 yards from scrimmage per game, which is the second highest in the league. He's one of their main targets in their passing game because they traded quite a bit for a wide receiver who they don't use and isn't particularly efficient when they do use him. And we're seeing, as you pointed out, with what Washington are doing, and this is a fairly similar offense to Washington, you don't need to have playmakers at every single level as long as your quarterback is efficient and is distributing the ball well. I would take Todd Gurley probably over... I would take Todd Gurley over Chris Thompson, but I think that at the moment they're playing... Obviously, Gurley's seeing more volume, but it's a similar game. They're the focal point of their offense.
I think that's right. And we'll come on to Kirk later, unfortunately, because we have to talk about our game because it's we really do because it's the biggest game of the weekend, whether we like it or not. And you're right there. Like Sean McVay is a very good coach, and what some coaches need big time players, but coaches like McVay need to get players in space, and it doesn't matter what that player is. They're happy to get multiple different players in space, and each game may be slightly different to the last one. I think, as you quite rightly pointed out, what should be noted here is that anybody who's been associated with Jeff Fisher in his tenure during the LA Rams especially, or the St. Louis to LA Rams, should never, ever get an offensive job in the NFL ever again.
They did an offensive job.
Well, they did an offensive job, but they shouldn't have a job on offense. There's people who can scheme offense. It's not necessarily all about talent. People can scheme and scheme people open. Try and find those people, NFL front officers, because then you might save money.
The remarkable thing about Sean McVay, of course, is obviously it points out how young he is, but he's also Carson Wentz's brother. If you actually look at him,
swapped over in a hospital somewhere. It's Cardinals at Rams. It's at Twickers/HQ. Over under is 47, and the Rams are favoured by 3.5.
I will take the Rams for their home field advantage. And I will take the under. I was very bold with the overs last week, and obviously hit gloriously with the Saints and Lions. But I don't think I'll be pushing that boat out again.
I don't know whether that game should be talked about for years to come or never be spoken of again.
Never again.
It's just unbelievable. I'm gonna take the Rams as well, and I'm actually gonna take the over. There's always one sneaky shootout, and I'm hoping it's this one.
A beautifully bad shootout, I believe the NFL Fantasy Live crew call them.
Yeah, let's have one of them bad boys. I'm all for Marcus at the moment because our prospective baseball team is one win away from the World Series.
Blimey.
Next game, Dutton, is Sunday Night Football. You may have seen this one before. I hope he didn't turn off halfway through the third quarter. It's Falcons at Patriots. I know the Patriots are still winning games, and the Falcons are not that. They're not 0-5. But what has gone wrong with these two teams? Because I'm pretty sure that 10 months ago they were in the 8 months ago, 9 months ago they were in the Super Bowl and quite comfortably the best two teams in the league.
Simplistically, the Patriots paid a shitload of money to a cornerback in the outside market, refused to pay one of their Super Bowl heroes, and it's destroyed the chemistry in the team. And the other one, Steve Sarkisian's a tit, and is trying to be cleverer than is trying to be cleverer than the other defensive coordinator on the other side. Throw the damn ball to Julio Jones. It is not rocket science. Give him the damn ball. He averages in his career a touchdown every 199 receiving yards. He has 370 receiving yards or something this year and doesn't have a touchdown. That's on you, Sark.
I think you're right. As you said, one's issue is defense and one's team's issue is offense. How you the Miami Dolphins are not the 85 Bears. How you don't score against the Miami Dolphins in the whole of the second half is unacceptable. Okay, there may be some kind of growing pains to get over. Matt Ryan and Steve Sarkisian never were before, blah, blah, blah. But as you said, as we've talked about under Kyle Shanahan, you give it to Julio so everybody else gets open. That's your job. I plug myself. When I was on the NFL show on TalkSport 2, I talked about the NFC South, and Nat asked me what does Sark need to do, and that was it. Feed Julio to get everybody else open. We'll move on to Julio. He's got 39 targets this year. James White of the New England Patriots has more. Okay, let's think about that. Julio Jones has 30 targets. Matt Ryan is throwing 7.8 yards a throw on first down. Last year it was 11. Sark needs to get Julio the ball, because you target Julio more, everybody else gets open. Do you know
who's leading the Falcons in targets since Mohamed Sanu got injured?
I don't know, Neil. Go on.
Hooper.
Oh my god.
Do you know how many receptions Hooper had on the season before Mohamed Sanu got hurt?
No.
4.
Oh god. This is not the high-powered offense that we saw last year. It is struggling tremendously, and they're even struggling to run as well. They're not. It's just not working.
Yeah. Obviously, they have this platoon. Last year with Freeman and Coleman, it just doesn't seem to be. It just doesn't seem to be working as well. I mean, Freeman doesn't catch as many passes as he has done in the past. But Coleman's hardly playing. I mean, it's just, they're not, rotating them in, rotating them out. Coleman is averaging 10 touches per game, but he's still being ridiculously efficient with those touches. Well, maybe you need to get him more involved. But it comes down to, it's basically, get everyone else all involved after you force-fed Julio Jones.
If we
Do you
go,
know how many red zone targets he has this season?
I'm going to say 2.
Congratulations, 2.
Oh. But to be fair,
why did I say at the start of the season Julio Jones would not be the wide receiver 1?
Yeah, because he wouldn't get any because he never got red zone targets under Kyle Shanahan. However, I expected Sarkisian to think I need to keep this job, so maybe I'll do that bit slightly different. Oh boy, how was I wrong? Steve Sarkisian and joining Lane Kiffin in there. I was only good at my job because Pete Carroll was really good at recruiting. Mm-hmm. If we move over to the Patriots, Dutton, here's why fantasy owners across the planet hate the New England Patriots. Brandon Cooks, 41 targets. Gronk, 41 targets. Hogan, 41 targets. James White, 41 targets. Oh, that is why. Okay, you're going to pick Gronk because he's a tight end, but I'm just using him as a comparison. It's not like they're using Gronk 70% of the time. They're so even and balanced that from a fantasy point of view, you've got no chance.
Agreed. Obviously, as you say, wide receiver hasn't really been that productive a role for all of them. It used to be, with Edelman, you had a fairly safe floor. That he was going to soak up an awful lot of the wide receiver catches. Since Edelman's gone down, they've spread it round to Hogan, to Cooks. They're getting, Philip Dorsett involved. Danny Amendola comes in so he can play enough snaps before drawing an offensive pass interference penalty. It's what he does. And yet they are frustrating. But even like last year, it was like, well, this could be a Blunt game, because they're going to be so far ahead. They're going to sit on LeGarrette Blunt the second half and, might get a touchdown, but he'd get a lot of carries. Their defense is so bad this year that you can't even lean on a Mike Gillisley. Well, if you leant on Mike Gillisley, he'd fumble. You can't rely on him. Bricks Goathead hasn't been fit. He's still making his way back. James White is a PPR monster because all he does is catch the ball, doesn't actually run the damn thing. Dion Lewis is starting to look like the back to own in New England. I've got stats here from Rich Rebar. He played 43% of the team snaps last week with 11 touches, which was up from 24% of the snaps in week 5 with 9 touches. He's becoming more and more part of the offense. And to be honest, it's taken him 18 months to get back to where he is now. But it is ridiculously frustrating. The best way to avoid the frustration of the Patriots offense is not to have any piece of it. But they score so many points. If you say, I'm not having a Patriot person, you're going to cut your nose off to spite your face. You just literally have to accept there will be weeks and there will be weak weeks.
That's the issue, isn't it? They score so many points that you want some of them in your team, but then you don't know who to pick because you never know who's going to be.
Yeah.
It's Falcons or Patriots. It's Al. It's Al hopefully not making any inappropriate gags on Sunday night. And Patriots are favoured by 3.5, Dutton, and the over-under is 55.
I will take the Patriots, and I will take the over.
Yeah, I think if you're taking the Patriots, you're probably going to take the over, given the fact that they can't stop anyone. I think it's 6 consecutive games with giving up 300 yards through the air. Hopefully, this will mean money for certain wide receivers who may be mentioned later by me.
Yeah. An NFL record, 6 consecutive games to start the season with allowing a 300-yard passer.
And just think, there was actually a pass that was caught and went into the end zone, and the guy kept hold of it, and it was fumbled. So there would have been more yards.
Yeah. Bollocks.
Not that I had that game as the over, and that cost me it. Not
that I had Austin Severian Jenkins in many spots.
Exactly, Neil. Exactly.
Utter bollocks.
Yeah, absolutely. You stink. NFL officials, you stink. Final game, Dutton, and unfortunately we've got to talk about it. I send Neil the games of the week, and he's like, I'm not talking about this game, and I'm like, we have to. Not because it's Monday Night Football, because Monday Night Football games are usually trash. But unfortunately, whether Neil likes it or not, his team are the favourites as we speak to win the NFC, and my team are 3-2 and have put on a couple of excellent games in prime time. So we unfortunately have to talk about this, because whether we like it or not, Neil, it's not just a huge game for me and you. It's actually a huge game in the context of the NFC.
Not my problem.
It's not your problem. But what I'm saying is that if Philadelphia, who by the way will get to a favour by 4.5, win this game, they go to 6-1, and
haven't won anything yet.
No, don't be this guy. This is not me and you and Chal on a text conversation. This is us talking about a team, not just your team. They're then favourites to be the 1 seed, and are in a position to do so, and have already won 3 games in division.
Yes,
is that right? So
that will be right.
So then, even if even if Cowboys or Washington go on a run, it's the 3-0 in division, and they will have the tiebreaker big time over Washington.
The point could be made that the quarterback playing the best football in the NFC at the moment is Carson Wentz. Now, notice I didn't say he's the best quarterback in the NFC because we know it's not the case. He is playing the best football. He has a reliable cartel of weapons. I mean, Zach Ertz has had 5 catches in every game this season. The one game he doesn't have 5 catches, he has 2 touchdowns. You know, Alshon Jeffrey isn't putting up the big numbers, but you can't ignore him. So he opens up things for everyone else. It's an efficient running game, and I have a serious man crush on Timothy Jernigan.
Well,
he is a bad man.
Well, I think if we go back to while we continue on we'll get onto the offense side of the ball. But that I watched your last game against the Panthers, and like if it wasn't Cam Newton and it was just someone who just stood there, they probably would have died because, like, literally, I think Jernigan and Derek Barnett and Fletcher Cox are getting their post delivered to that backfield where Cam Newton was because they were in there all the time.
Did you see the running back rushing stats for the game?
Yeah.
13 carries for 1 yard.
Oh.
And, you know, say what you want. You know, we know that the Panthers are going to run the ball. They're going to show you a lot of different looks of how they're going to run the ball. Once that ball went backwards, there was an Eagles defender following it. It was ridiculous. It was fun to watch. And I'd say this is without a question is the best Eagles defense since the halcyon days of Jimmy Johnson.
Absolutely done. If we go on to offense though, injuries for Washington on the D-line. Jonathan Allen, first round draft pick, who was playing really, really well, has got a Liz Frank injury, had his operation.
Bitch.
I know, yeah.
Hate that Liz Frank.
I was not happy when I saw that, especially as Norman and Breland could be out as well. But we're going to talk Eagles running game because with Allen out and let's be honest, Neil, a better than expected rushing attack for the Philadelphia Eagles. Do we expect a lot of LeGarrette Blount this game?
I think so, because you know the Eagles have shown what they want to do. They're going to come out, they're going to pass the ball, and hopefully they're going to sit on it in the fourth quarter. It's how the Patriots use LeGarrette Blount. The Eagles, the last 2 games, I think it's 2 of their last 3 games have had drives in the fourth quarter that have chewed 6 minutes or more off the clock. You've taken a quarter. You know, basically, you've cut a quarter in half and said you're not having the ball, and it's not been a case of when the drive ends, it's a punt. The drive ends and it's a touchdown or it's a field goal. Washington have not ran the ball well this season. So if ideally you want to get them in a situation where they have to play fast, they have to play one-dimensional, and if you go one-dimensional against the Eagles, as you say, that pass rush is going to come. So I think the Eagles it'll be, you know, a Carson Wentz-led show in the first half, but if a lead can be developed, they will turn it over a bit more to LeGarrette Blount. Wendell Smallwood might be available for this game, so obviously he factors into it, but the clock killer is LeGarrette Blount.
Without a top 10 wide receiver, a top 10 QB doesn't have a top 50 wide receiver or a top 24 tight end, and as you quite rightly pointed out, his team also have ran the ball well once, which was against the LA Rams, and basically anybody can run on. Kirk Cousins, fantasy quarterback starter? Question mark.
Yes. It's one of those things, you know, that you say, you know, the best way to get a piece of this offense is the quarterback. I mean, I say you can't rely on any of the others. Chris Thompson, as I say, is still... regression is coming. He's doing really well, but it's on limited work. You can't sustain that.
Absolutely.
Samaje Perine is averaging 3 yards a carry. Rob Kelly is not fit. Josh Doctson has not shown he's big enough part of the passing game. Terrell Pryor is catching 40% of the balls thrown his way, or something stupid like that. Jamison Crowder is on milk cartons. And, you know, ultimately, it's the pieces around Kirk Cousins do enough to help him move the ball. But ultimately, all the heavy lifting he's having to do himself. So it's coming from his arm. That's what you want from a fantasy quarterback. You want a quarterback who's going to have to pass an awful lot, and you don't want him to be too reliant on one player, because if that one player goes, the whole house of cards falls down. So yeah, if you've got Kirk Cousins, start him. I don't really see the danger, considering how consistent he's been. I mean, he's been a QB1 in his last 3 games, and it's worth noticing that the Eagles have allowed a top 12 fantasy quarterback in their last 5.
Yep. It's a tough game for Washington. The one they should have won was the first game, not the game in Philadelphia. They should have won that first game. He was sloppy. They didn't play well. They got a play that didn't change the game, but basically iced it for the Eagles, which you could argue probably wasn't a fumble, but they'd already kind of lost it at that point. They need to consistently move the ball, and that has been levelled at Kirk in the past, that when it's going great, he's great, but sometimes if he gets into a rut, he finds it difficult to get out of. It doesn't help that he's got no one to run the ball. Like, I think they've got to get Mac Brown in that kind of situation involved. The others aren't working. Ryan Grant's got to play. Ryan Grant's got to get on the field, because he catches it when it comes to him. As you said, Pryor and Doxson are not really working at the moment, and Doxson scored a couple of touchdowns, great, but we need more from him, and we obviously need more from Terrell Pryor.
I think a key statistic for this game is 55% of Washington's receiving yards have come after the catch. The Eagles give up more yards after the catch than any team in the NFL.
There we go, Dutton.
So it's got to be a case of the Eagles have got to keep the offense in front of them when they're on defense. Absolutely. But if they have them in front of them, they need to get their men to the ground.
They need to tackle properly, Neil. Absolutely. We get a nice quiet Sunday, don't we, where we get to enjoy the NFL without our teams annoying us. Unfortunately, that means we get Monday spoiled. It's Washington at Philadelphia. The Eagles are favoured by 4.5, and the over-under is 48.5.
Taking the Eagles, and I will take the over.
I'm not changing my stats any more than I usually do. And I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles as well, probably to win by 7-10. And I think it would be over. We're talking somewhere like 35-24.
I can live with that.
Yeah, I can't, because we'll be 3-3 then, and somehow we've got Ezekiel Elliott back in our lives again next week.
Heart bleeds.
But let's talk of our two teams for the time being, and let's get on to some fancy darling.
Hello, darling.
Talk me through it, Neil.
Well, as a Dalvin Cook owner in one league, when I saw him go down on the same week that Chris Carson went down, Marcus Mariota got injured, in the same league that I've already lost David Johnson, I was pissed. Let's put it that way. In another league, when I picked him up on Sunday morning, I had Jerick McKinnon last week. He did well. That's 2 weeks in a row. He is by far a superior running back to his running mate, Latavius Murray. I think it is, let me see again, I have it written down here. Jerick McKinnon he's run for a first down, excuse me, on 26% of his carries. These stats are courtesy, I say, of Rich Rebar at Lord Reeves on Twitter. 26% of Jerick McKinnon's carries have resulted in a first down. 7% of Latavius Murray's have resulted in a first down. That's hashtag bad. We know he's a good pass catcher. He's got 39 receptions in his last 7 games. The Baltimore Ravens, since they lost Brandon Williams, have allowed 151 rushing yards to running backs alone in 3 of their last 4 games. Stefan Diggs might be missing. It's still Case Keenum under centre. Jerick McKinnon is a 3-down back, and especially in PPR formats, this is what you need to get involved with.
That's the darling, and although Dutton's kind of given us a loser on Latavius Murray, let's get another one.
If you hadn't already grown weary of Randall Cobb, now's a good time to start. He got 9 catches for 85 yards in week 1. Since week 1, his targets, his catches, his yards have gone down in every single game. Now, when Brett Huntley came in against the Minnesota Vikings, he targeted Randall Cobb 8% of the time. This is not going to be an offense that's going to be able to sustain multiple receiving options. Devontae Adams catches touchdowns. That's pretty much all he does. Jordy Nelson is going to be, still a factor, but not as he is. Randall Cobb, Martellus Bennett, Geronimo Allison, Jeff Janis, all these people, you're not relevant anymore. So if you were still clinging to Randall Cobb, it's time to say goodbye.
As Dutton, I'll continue the feud. Mike McCarthy, let's see what you've got. On that note,
hashtag in the feud.
On that note, Dutton, let's get on to our daily fantasy team of the week.
Mains and Duts. Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Show me the money.
Dutton, who is your quarterback this week?
My quarterback, $5,100 is Tyrod Taylor. The Buffalo Bills taking on the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tyrod's had 7 rushing attempts or more in 4 of 5 games, and the Bucks have allowed 20.9 or fantasy points or more to quarterbacks in 3 of their 5 games this season.
As I say every single week, I send Neil a rundown, but don't share the team of the week. My quarterback, 5,100, is Tyrod Taylor versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because they're hashtag not good, especially on defense. And the Bills are frisky, and isn't it cool? And I like Tyrod Taylor because I just think the whole of the Buffalo front office don't, but he seems to laugh in their face. So I hope it continues.
I would like him to have someone to throw the damn ball to, but
well, I was about to say they did, but they got rid of him, but they didn't, and that's why they got rid of him. Running back 1, Neil.
In a game that used to matter, the Cowboys are taking on the 49ers. The Cowboys have been butchered by running backs. The only running back they've been able to slow down in fantasy football this season was the rotting, decaying corpse of Chris Johnson. So I'm going for Carlos Hyde, 5,900. Think CJ Beathard showed he can move the offense, especially if Sean Lee doesn't play. The Cowboys' defense is trash, and it's got a soft middle. Carlos Hyde has been very good in every game except one, and that one game started this will ride the hot hand bollocks. The hot hand belongs to Carlos Hyde.
My running back one is a guy you may have heard of. His name is Adrian Peterson. He's in Twickers against the Rams. He's 5,800. I think this lasts maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So I'm going to take advantage of it this week and going with AD. Running back 2, Neil.
Jerick McKinnon, 6,300.
That's nice. I'm obviously discussed on Fantasy Darling. I wanted to pick someone on the New Orleans Saints. Because I think New Orleans Saints are going to score a lot of points against the Green Bay Packers this week. I plumped in the kind of toss-up situation on the cheaper guy, which was Alvin Kamara. He's 5,600. It is a kind of share. I understand that, but there's a thinking behind it. They get ahead quickly and by a lot. I think Kamara gets more than Ingram in that kind of situation, just to get him more of the ball as he's the rookie. Wide receiver 1, Neil.
Larry Fitzgerald, 7,300. He has 6 or more receptions in 4 games this season and 10 or more in 2. He is playing the Rams. He only needs, I think it's I have ripped it up, unfortunately, my notes, but I know he is very close to the all-time record for receptions against the Rams franchise that was held by Jerry Rice at 166. So I know he's closing in on that. And he's Larry Fitzgerald. Adrian Peterson is opening it up for Carson Palmer, who was on point. Where last week, 14 consecutive passes right out the gate. And, the Rams' corner, slot corners aren't the greatest.
My wide receiver 1 is a plea. Not a pledge. It's a plea. We've spoken about it already. Please, Steve Sarkisian, your job is to get Julio Jones the ball. He's only on 8,500 at the moment, so it's buying low considering I think last year he went up to somewhere in the region of 9,700. I've gone for Julio, because he's playing the Patriots, and if it isn't this week, it may not happen. So it's a fingers crossed plea. Please, Mr. Sarkisian, get Julio Jones the ball.
And it is, of course, the ultimate, one of the ultimate revenge games still in the NFL, because Bill Belichick told Scott Pioli and Thomas Dimitroff not to draft Julio Jones. They should have taken Jonathan Baldwin.
It's gone well, isn't it? Who's your wide receiver 2, Neil?
One wide receiver has 5 catches in every game this season. It's Jarvis Landry. He also has a receiving touchdown in back-to-back games. Now, I think Jarvis Landry sucks. He's just an extension of the running game. But you can't argue with the volume. The Jets have allowed 23 receptions for 291 yards to wide receivers in their last 2 games. So, if we're going to keep this close to the vest, they're going to feed Jay Ajayi. They're going to keep Jarvis Landry involved. Devontae Parker won't play. So it's basically going to funnel targets to Jarvis Landry like they've always done.
What's the price, Neil? Sorry,
6,800.
Nice. My wide receiver 2 is the same as last week, and that's Demaryius Thomas. 5,800. Still low considering last week I think got 25 points. He's playing the Chargers. I never really know what to expect from the Chargers. It'd be a tight game. They always are, the Charger games. So I've gone for Demaryius Thomas, 5,800.
A touchdown would be nice.
That would be nice, but I've so far picked 2 wide receivers who seem to be allergic to the end zone. Wide receiver 3, Neil.
Robert Woods of the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this may sound like if you'd done it, I would accuse you of running out of money. However, I stress that in 3 of his last 4 games, Woods has at least 5 receptions and 66 yards. The Cardinals are bleeding fantasy points to wide receivers because on one side they have Patrick Peterson and on the other side they have burnt toast Justin Bettle. Can't stop anyone, can't cover anyone. We've seen that Sammy Watkins has had 10 targets in his last 3 games. He has 2 receptions in his last 3 games. There you go to Robert Woods, because even despite that, Sammy Watkins will see Patrick Peterson. So I think Bobby Woods could come up nicely in this one.
Who's how much?
Oh, sorry, again, 4,000.
So I picked Cooper Kupp, who's 4,600, in a similar kind of concept, although he's probably more in the slot than Woods, although they have been known to rotate slot to second wide receiver, while, I don't know, Sammy Watkins is cooking with Patrick Peterson, as those two aren't really playing.
Now there's a TV show I'd watch.
So I've gone for Cooper Kupp. He's actually 4,600, so it's actually more than Robert Woods. It's why I hesitated, because I thought, do I want Woods? But no, I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp in that kind of same concept as you. There's Patrick Peterson, and then kind of like, as you said, tasty burnt toast. Tight end, Neil.
I suspect we will have the same name here.
We don't.
You've got him in your flex. I've got Zach Ertz, 6,900. He has at least 13.1 PPR points in every game this season. He has 20% of his career receptions have come against the Washington Redskins, and they account for 13% of his games. The Washington Redskins are allowing a 71.4% catch rate to tight ends this season. And Zach Ertz has been money. He's got 4 touchdowns already. I think he only got 4 last season. You've noticed I've not gone for a stack this week. I really wanted to go for an Ertz Wentz one, but then I thought, no, let's try and get away from this. But I really like Ertz this week.
My tight end is your tight end of last week, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He's playing the Dolphins. I think they just feed him at the moment, and he's done everything that they would ask for him, if not 200% more. Lots of catches, and scored a touchdown last week, and I don't care what anyone says, I watched it.
That would have been his second touchdown, of course.
Of course, yeah, and he's good. So he is playing the Dolphins, who, let's be honest, aren't great. And he's 5,000. I'll do my flex before you do yours. My flex is Zach Ertz. He's 6,900. Washington stink against tight ends, have done for ages. Linebackers don't cover. it's an issue. Always has been an issue. It's not a position we've ever tried to deal with. Kind of took the New York Giants model on that. It's not as bad as the Giants, but it's got a similar concept. And Zach Ertz is money against us, and I don't expect anything different on Monday night. 6,900.
ASJ, by the way, has already been referred to by one prominent Jets fan as already the best tight end we've ever had.
You know when you say prominent Jets fan, you mean our friend Mull?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's your flex?
Austin Hooper, 4,100.
I had a look at
the Patriots have basically, are a come and get what you want. It's a bring and buy sale for defensive, ineptitude. But they have been particularly weak against tight ends. The only game this season they have not allowed a tight end touchdown was the game against the Carolina Panthers, which is odd because you consider they are actually quite a tight end heavy offense. But that was the only time a tight end has not scored a touchdown against them this season. Obviously, last week they should have had 2 against the Patriots, but you can't have everything, I suppose. Hooper, 4,100.
Who'd your defence and special teams done?
Defence and special teams at $3,000 is the New Orleans Saints playing the Green Bay Packers. Now, I'm not saying Brent Huntley is going to throw 3 interceptions every week, but the Packers, without Aaron Rodgers, have a propensity to throw a lot more interceptions than when he is playing. So I think, don't get me wrong, the Saints defense is playing well. Last week was a bit of an aberration, but they still kept turning the ball over, and they kept scoring defensive touchdowns, but they just gave up a lot of yards and, by consequence, some points. But they played very well in London. They shut down the Panthers before that. This is despite the fact that they've got someone who I'm sure he should be a labourer in the 1960s, Ken Crawley. You're not an NFL cornerback. You're my dad's mate who borrowed his orbital sander. But he's playing quite well. Marcus Lattimore's a stud, probably the best cornerback in this draft so far. And Cameron Jordan is a wrecking machine. And if the Packers continue to have trouble keeping their tackles fit, he could feast.
Defense and special teams. 2,600. The New York Football Giants are home to the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not going to lie. There's a propensity to say that I ran out of money at this position, but I actually didn't. I kind of worked around with them being my defense and special teams. It's pretty straightforward, really. If Olivier Vernon and JPP play a 70% game, they'll be in the backfield 90% of the time. And if then Jackrabbit gets an interception, a touchdown, an interception return, it's the 2,600's worthwhile, and that's kind of all I've gone with. I don't need them to hold them to 10 points like they did with the Broncos, but that would be nice. But I'll have them interceptions and sacks, please, and I think there'll be a few of them. Maybe not interceptions, but definitely sacks.
I mean, if you're a defensive end and you don't have at least 6 pressures against Russell Wilson because the offensive line is that bad, did you even play?
Exactly. Let's go through it quickly, and then we'll let everyone go. Recap: quarterback,
Tyrod Taylor.
Cosign. Running back 1,
Carlos Hyde.
AD. Running back 2,
Jerick McKinnon.
I've gone Alvin Kamara. Wide receiver 1,
Larry Fitzgerald III.
I've got Julio. Wide receiver 2,
Jarvis Landry, and hating myself for it.
I've got Demaryius Thomas. Wide receiver 3,
Bobby Woods.
I've got Cooper Kupp in the same kind of concept. Who's your tight end, Neil?
Zach Ertz.
Mine is Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Who's your flex?
Austin Hooper.
Mine is Zach Ertz. By the way, both of us picking 2 tight ends is ironic into the ironic extreme. Who's your defence and special teams?
The New Orleans Saints.
And I've gone for the New York Football Giants done. Any last things?
I retweeted a picture earlier on Thursday, in the interest of full disclosure, people listen to this, of Rob Ryan looking like Gandalf in a Hawaiian, in a tropical suit. Please go and hunt it down. It's absolutely majestic.
It is. Neil is at ends up in 13. I am at Mainsy7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. I usually tweet on that. You can tell it's got poor spelling. Neil is everywhere. And please read the stuff. Please retweet the stuff. Please rate and review the show, because the more people who listen, the more we feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, and you know, if we can get, you know, a lot of 5-star reviews and we become more popular, we could get better hosts.
We could, Neil. We could. Final thing for me, I wish you the worst of luck for the whole weekend.
Get stuffed. Don't forget, I will be on the TalkSport show, on TalkSport NFL show on Sunday at some point. I don't know whether it will be before the games or after them, but I usually get a chance to natter with Nat at some point.
Fantastic. Listen, enjoy, and we'll see you next week. These top guys are out.